start. Welcome, Elise. I'm sure you can, there we have Sanchir. Perhaps Sanchir, you can start with a few opening words, and then I'll wait for Abi to see if he can assist me. Otherwise, I will try to stay to the background and let you manage. Sanchir, can you speak, Sanchir? I don't see our second and third speaker, Sanchir, on the list. So, Jia, can you unmute yourself?
Hi, Prof.
Yes. Are you able to manage?
Yes, I'm managing it from my phone. I have to manage my PC.
Okay. Well, we've only got, I think Alexandra is interpreting, but we've got Innocent who can say a few words before Elise, who's available, will be able to speak. But I don't see the other speakers. Do you have, can you just remind me of the people that are?
Yeah, they were waiting at the waiting room.
Constantine.
So let me send them a reminder.
Okay. All right. Well, I think while you do that, perhaps you can start. Let's hand over to our president, Dr. Innocent Besigye. Do you mind just launching this meeting with a few words, and then we'll hand over to Elise Peterson, who I think is able to share her slides. And I will just perhaps do some quick introductory words at some point to just talk a little bit more. Sanchiri, maybe you can do that, and then while you, Innocent, is speaking, you can just contact them. Okay, over to you, Innocent.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Shabil. I am Innocent Besigye. I am a family physician and a lecturer at Makerere University in Kampala, Uganda. And I'm the president of the African Forum for Primary Health Care. I am happy this afternoon from where I am to be part of this meeting. Allow me to say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone, depending on where you are. First of all, allow me to welcome everyone to this meeting, this research meeting. And I really want to give a special thanks to those who have consistently attended this meeting. The attendance has been quite good, as we appreciate the importance of research, which will generate evidence to inform policy, practice, and the training of primary health care, because we're not going to develop primary health care, particularly for Africa, when we don't have evidence. And that's why it is important that we utilize this forum to always come together and listen to each other, and we see who is doing what. And I am also sure that there are some attendees who are here for the first time. A special welcome and thank you for coming. And we really hope to be seeing and receiving you for our future meetings. Thank you very much, Shabir. And really, we are very, very grateful for always our Shabir is our executive coordinator. We are always very, very grateful for always putting this together. Otherwise, if it was not your efforts, I don't think we would be where we are. And I am really grateful for everyone for having come, and I wish you a fruitful deliberations. I am really hopeful that this session will benefit all of us. Thank you very much. I wish you all the best during your attendance. And on behalf of the AfroPHC Executive Board and everyone in the management of African Forum for Primary Health Care, allow me to launch this meeting to start. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sanchiri, perhaps you can say a few words.
Yeah, thank you all for honoring today's meeting. I'm Ephraim Sanchiri, and I'll be the facilitator for today's meeting. And my colleague, Ebe Kame, will handle the technical issues for today. I want to talk briefly about AfroPHC system research. This system group group addressing Africa's primary healthcare system issues. And the objectives of the group are to develop an understanding of key documents affecting Africa's primary healthcare system, and also to share relevant published research on primary healthcare system in Africa, and to share and review research work in progress on primary healthcare system in Africa, and also to mentor researchers and network for collaborative research projects. And we aim to meet every first Tuesday of the month at 2 to 4 p.m. Central African time. The purpose of today's meeting is to present an overview of research in primary healthcare. And our objectives are to understand basic research concepts, understand how to define primary healthcare and priority issues for research, and also become familiar with examples of PhD research. Today we have 3 presenters for today. And the first two will share their thoughts on overview of research in primary healthcare. And also the second one will also talk about developing practice-based research network, a project for we also share a progress on collaborative study with Imperial College London on digital health for primary healthcare in Africa, based on group discussions from our policy workshop in November 2021. I will now introduce our first presenter, who is Elizabeth Peterson. Elizabeth Peterson started her clinical research career at the University of Cape Town, South Africa. During the 28 years as a clinical research nurse and nurse research specialist, she has been involved in studies related to psychiatric genetics, colorectal cancer genetics, a randomized controlled trial related to colorectal adenoma polyp prevention, latent tuberculosis infection among health workers, and drug-resistant tuberculosis. Prior to her involvement in clinical health research, Elise lectured psychiatric nursing at the University of Free State, South Africa. She started her nursing career working in tertiary hospitals, caring for patients with diabetes, cancer, and cardiothoracic surgery. While working in rural hospitals, she delivered 40 plus babies, assisted in theater and managed emergency sections. Elise holds a Bachelor of Social Science degree in nursing, as well as in psychology and postgraduate diploma in nursing education and administration. Her PhD focused on molecular epidemiology, suitability profile, outcomes, and transmission dynamics in patients with extensive drug-resistant tuberculosis in South Africa. She continues her clinical research career as an independent nurse researcher. She authored several journal publications, including as first author, and presents her research findings at local and international conferences. Elise is the author of 2 chapters in Mental Health Nursing, 7th edition, and a chapter in the next edition of Brock Community Health. She served on the editorial board of Primary Healthcare Research and Development at Cambridge Press. Thank you. Elise, over to you.
Thank you so much for that introduction and for the opportunity to talk to you about the overview of research. I just want to say at the start that my speciality is not primary health care, but through my PhD, I definitely got a sense of the interaction between primary health care and hospital-based nursing and care. My passion is research, and that's why I said, yes, I will talk to you about the overview of research. However, just looking at all the people on the call, there are seasoned researchers on the call, so I would invite you to please support me in talking about research in primary health care as we go along. So when I saw this, what I'm going to call a quote, research, a way of examining your practice, for me, that's a summary of what research is about. So it's not just a skill, research is a way of thinking. It is critically examining various aspects of our work. It's actually a habit of questioning. So as we need to get into the habit of questioning what we do and therefore systematically examine the information we observe. And the reason for that is to find answers that one can then institute appropriate changes in one's work. And research is actually something that we do naturally, but in the difference between research and non-research activities is in the way we find our answers. So the process of research must meet certain criteria to be able to be called a research, and to identify certain requirements, one needs to be able to define research. And each discipline, like primary health care, will have a specific view on what is called research. But I'm talking about research as an overview and as the basic concept of what research is. And when we put the two words or the two syllables together of re and search, the noun describes a careful, systematic patient study or investigations of primary health care in this instance to establish facts and principles about the discipline. So ultimately, the definition of research, when you say you're going to undertake a study to answer your questions, what you are saying is you're undertaking within a certain framework, a set of approaches or philosophies, depending on your academic field. You're going to use procedures, methods, techniques that to study and to test, and ultimately you want to come to a valid and reliable conclusion that is unbiased and objective. So if we look at these words, certain approaches means qualitative and quantitative, and I'll come to that. But ultimately, as I've said, the approach that is going to be applicable for primary health care is what you will choose for your research. No matter which discipline, any research needs to be valid. That means a correct procedure applied to get to the answer to the question. The correct procedure, for instance, for a baby in primary health care, if you want to know the growth of the baby, you might weigh it, but you're also going to do a head circumference, measure the head circumference. Ultimately, you also want to have reliability in your research. And that is to have a quality of the measurements of the procedure that you use that's reliable, meaning in research terms, that means that it's repeatable again and again, and that there's an accuracy to that results that you get. And this is well defined in lab-related research studies, where repeatability and accuracy is determined. Ultimately, what we want is an unbiased and objective research, meaning that you do not introduce your own vested interest in your research. There are many definitions of different ways that we can be biased. And what it means is to be unbiased is not to attempt to conceal or highlight something that you want to do specifically through your research. The research process is structured. It is acceptable scientific method, and the aim is to solve problems and to create new knowledge. And this is what's called a scientific method. Your scientific method then will have systematic observations, a specific classification of your data or your information, and an interpretation of your data. And I can just, we actually do research in our lives on a daily basis. But the difference between our casual day-to-day way of generalizing and coming to conclusions is that in the scientific method, in our research, we have a degree of formality. There's a rigorous process, we can verify it, and we can generalize it, and it is valid. The characteristics is therefore research is controlled, it's rigorous, it's systematic, it's valid, it's empirical, and it's critical. And each of these words, controlled, rigorous, etc., each of these characteristics can actually be a discussion and a lecture on its own, on it at a different day. Ultimately, the research process is undertaking a journey where you ask two questions: what you want to find out about, and how to go about finding your answers. Oops, sorry. So there are different types of research and perspectives from where you can determine which type of research you want to do. The first one is the application of your research. Are you involved in pure research, which ultimately in primary health care, I would like somebody to give me an example of pure research in primary health care, because ultimately, in my mind, primary health care research would be predominantly applied research. But per definition, pure research is developing and testing hypotheses and theories. And there's not really a practical application in the process of doing pure research. Where the practical application is valid is where you conduct applied research, which is to solve problems, ask practical questions involving policy formation, administration, ultimately to understand a certain phenomenon, to understand a certain how the world occurs. And applied research can be explanatory or exploratory, or it's usually descriptive. And as I said, it's mostly done based on pure research. So if we look at the objective, ultimately one wants to there's research to be done to describe a phenomenon, to create correlations between two phenomena, to explain and to explore. And your mode of research, it falls into two broad approaches, which is structured and then unstructured. And for those researchers, seasoned researchers on this call, I know that I was putting myself on the line by saying structured research is predominantly quantitative and unstructured. The approach is unstructured approach is mostly qualitative. And of course, this is a discussion maybe for more than 1 or 2 lectures. But the distinction I'm making here is in the approach. I do concede that in your approach, your quantitative process of your research can be structured and unstructured, and the same for qualitative research. Steps in the research process: formulate your problem, do a literature review, develop objectives, design your research, prepare your research design, collect your data, analyze your data, interpret, generalize, and write a report. What I want to do now is that just to look at the first step and examples of how you possibly could define or identify research problems. I'm clear that wherever you work, there are plenty of research answers, questions that you want to be answered. So I've just highlighted here 4 main areas that you could look at in to emphasize that it's not necessarily also always patient related. It can be system related, it can be human resources, it could be health and well-being. And it could be a combination of all those. And I've listed a couple of examples inside of each of these. What I want to discuss is that looking at how and where to actually determine the specific problem or research issue you're going to address is to look at what's working. Look at what's not working in any of these and where you are at. You know, there's more, you're working maybe in none of these areas. Also to look at what's not working. And this will give you a view on where to start to identify or formulate your problems. Just to be clear, some of the issues that you're going to identify could be working and not working, or not working as well as you liked it to work. But this is just a basic way of sitting and identifying which is the research focus that you're going to focus on, because it is such a vast field to focus your research on. I yesterday learned about that the Global Competency and Outcome Framework for Universal Healthcare Coverage, the document was published. And inside of this document, it's inevitable that research is needed in the wherever you work. This sentence caught my attention. In the health context, evidence creates high quality information, and that is gained through research. And this evidence is predictable and reliable. But what I want to leave you with is this. Whilst all evidence is information, not all information is evidence. So I'm going to stop sharing, and if there is time, if we could discuss, I see there's many statements or chats. Shabir, if you could help me and to maybe cause a discussion if there is time. Thank you so much.
Let me see if Sinchiri's. Shall we go to the next speaker and then perhaps take questions one time?
Yeah, is there any question for the participants? There is none in the chat too. So I think we can go to the next presenter. The next presenter is Dr. Constantine Nambungu. He's a current holder of Ernst Mark Research Fellowship Grant of the Federal University of Science, Research and Economy at the Medical University of Vienna. He's a senior lecturer at Gulu University in northern Uganda. He's a Ugandan with a background in food science technology, with postgraduate training in human nutrition, agriculture and rural development, as well as degree in international primary health care of the University of London. He holds a doctoral degree from the University of Vienna in agriculture and social anthropology, with specialty in medical anthropology. From 2011 to 2014, he was research coordinator at Great Lakes University of Kisumu in Kenya, and lectured in research method and community nutrition. At Gulu University, he lectured in programs of bachelor's and master's of public health, medical anthropology, food security, and community nutrition. His research interest lies in population health studies, social medicine, community nutrition, and non-communicable disease, HIV/AIDS, as well as health system strengthening. Now, Dr. Constantine, over to you now.
Yeah, thank you. Let me see if I can share my screen.
Are you finding difficulty to share it?
Just a moment.
Okay.
Are you there? Can you see the?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know whether.
Can you put it
is that...
in slide?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It's better now, yeah?
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much, thank you. And the members, I want to appreciate Elise for a good presentation about research. And I think that is going to make my work very easy. Just a moment. Okay, I think you can see me now there. So my presentation structure is as you see there. I had to make an overview of what is PHC research. And of course, as we already had a very elaborate presentation from Elise, that will help us. But of course, I thought it was good to start with the introduction of what PSC is. Just, I know many of us already know this, the component of PSC, the principles, in relation to the global conference on PHC. And then of course, then we look very briefly on what is primary health care research, the roles, our roles as this AfroPHC, then the way forward. So that is really overall what I want to do. I picked this definition from WHO, which talks about primary health care as an institution that addresses the majority of a person's health needs throughout their lifetime. Of course, we have to look at the physical, mental, and social well-being, and it is people-centered rather than disease-centered. So we have to look at people other than focusing on the disease. So that is one aspect. Then, of course, PHC is a whole of society approach that includes health, promotion. We have to work out disease prevention, treatment, rehabilitation, and palliative care. These are all very key terms that we need to get on to appreciate when we do our activities in PHC. And of course, when we do research, as you heard earlier on from Elise, These are the kind of things that we need to consider. There are three components of the PHC approach. One is, of course, meeting people's health needs throughout their lives. And then, of course, addressing the broader determinants of health through multi-sectoral policy and action. And then empowering individuals, families, communities to take charge of their own health. So that is really what we need to do at the community level. And, you know, when we have programs, say like in government, when we talk of multi-sectoral, for instance, when we talk of health, we could be looking at agriculture. We could even be looking at roads. For instance, when hard to reach communities cannot access healthcare because it is very far or the road is very bad. For instance, when there is an emergency, what do we do? So it is up to government to ensure that roads are okay, to see that people can travel and really have very quick and manageable access to healthcare. So that is something that this component talks about. Now, we have this principle of PHC. And you see I put there at the heading 1978. And that is when the first conference, the Alma Ata, Russia, Kazakhstan was held. We see that the PHC approach is fundamental to achieving our shared goals in universal health coverage. And UHC is already a very crucial, discipline in healthcare. Because the thing is, in our society, the question is, who has access to good healthcare? In medical anthropology, we know that wealth can be, can show you whether somebody can have access to good healthcare or may not have. We have a very good example right now in Uganda. Of course, Gulu is in northern Uganda. We have our national speaker has died. And now the government had to fly him to the US. Unfortunately, when he went there, he still died anyway. We are actually in mourning at the moment. I think he's going to be buried on Friday. But of course now, if somebody in a rural area has a similar problem like the speaker, I don't think that fellow can be flown to the US where they can get the best healthcare to save their life or something like that. So these are the kind of things when we talk of universal health coverage, we need to be very careful of or cognizant of, because we need to use our program of AfroPHC to see how we can actually improve health of the community. So this is something that is very, very important. We are really experiencing as we lost that gentleman, and it comes from my place here. So, you know, the whole country is in that throw of that death. So, and of course we have the health-related sustainable development goals. All the development goals, we know they have some application to health anyway, in one way or the other. And that is when we look at the components, we are talking about the principle, we are saying what is clearly important here is that it is when the road is very bad, that is transport, but still it plays a role in health. When we collaborate internationally in matters to do with health, it is the same thing. So I want to draw every members present here, your attention. I couldn't send, I believe if you went online, you can download these principles, which was initiated in 1978 in the Alma Ata Declaration to champion global health, which indeed is primarily primary health care. So members, I invite you to download that Alma Ata Declaration. So that is, I think, a 4 or 5 page document, which is easy to read and understand. Now, after the 1978, we have again this standard global conference on PHC. This conference envisioned the following items: that government and societies that prioritize, promote, and protects people's health and well-being at both population and individual level through strong health systems. So you see, we will have to deal with this kind of thing. Our government should ensure that. Again, talking about my speaker who has passed on, does government guarantee that somebody in my village, say like in a district which is a little bit remote, even from where I am in the city, Gulu city, or if we are to talk about the best healthcare is probably found in the capital city, where my brother, Dr. Besige is in Kampala, the concentration that the best healthcare is in Kampala. So the thing is, can government guarantee healthcare in all the members who are represented from Morocco to South Africa? Can our government guarantee our health? But the Astana conference is talking about that. Then, of course, the second thing is that primary care and health services that are high quality, safe, comprehensive, integrated, accessible, available, and affordable for everyone, everywhere, provided with compassion, respect. You can see all these things are really very serious issues. And the question is, can we have it? Can we have it? Then the third thing is that this conference talks about is enabling an health conducive environment in which individuals and communities are empowered and engaged in maintaining and enhancing their health and well-being. So PHC for us should be that whatever we are going to do under this program, we should be able to enhance, the capacity, both through information and direct action of the community to really participate in, making their health better. And then, of course, as I already mentioned, even in the, the sustainable development goals, there is this aspect of partners and stakeholders aligned in providing effective support to national health policies, strategies, and plans. So I think this meeting today and the gathering of the persons here present is a testimony to the fact that we need to collaborate, we need to come together, because we all believe that this PHC is important to us, and then we need to ensure that we work together and really synergize and do these things in the best possible way. Now, coming to what is primary care research. Again, I looked at it as what is done by members of the primary care team, in this case us, when we join our hands together with their patients and communities they serve. So this is what we do. And of course, the question is, what does it include in this case? We should be able to translate science into practice of medicine and caring of patients. We should be able to help our patients. We should be able to help our community to understand that they could do something for themselves to really make health better. Then, of course, to understand how to better to organize healthcare to meet patient and population needs. We also have to evaluate innovations. What are the best innovations? What are the things that we can do differently? I think this was also alluded to by Professor Elise when she talked about research proper. So what are the innovations that can provide best healthcare to patients? Then most importantly, again, engaging patients, communities, and practices to improve health. I think for us in PHC, when we engage patients in a participatory manner, I think we can generate a lot of ideas, which forms the basis of the kind of research that Madame Elise was talking about just a minute ago about research. So that is what primary care research is all about. So we need to know then how critical and useful this primary care research is for us. I see that it's very crucial, and there are majorly three reasons I see it. it is important because we need to understand that research is necessary for us to constantly question our practice and reduce complacency. So what are we doing? Are we doing it right? People getting the benefit of what we're doing? We need to ask that question. And this research definitely comes very handy. Then findings from research should allow us to progress and improve patient care because of evidence. I think we had Ellie is talking about evidence is information, but not all information are evidence. So we need to know that we have the right evidence to help us make decisions that can then make us improve care in our society. And then, of course, doing this kind of research make us better translators of evidence. It is only with experience conducting research that we can understand how difficult it is to carry out good quality research, because we become better critics and evidence-based practitioners. So we need to do research. And I believe our grouping right now is because we believe that we need to come together and join hands to bring our understanding and use evidence to improve health. And that, to me, is what is really important. It is this one I picked from Liu 2017 is asking why research in primary care is important. So that was their opinion on that. Then, of course, I looked at what the Council of Academic and Family Medicine in the US. They looked at the type of primary care research that exists or has been used over time. We see that we have one, understanding disease prevention, chronic care management, acute illness treatment, and undifferentiated symptoms care. Some example under this is the question whether would medication assisted treatment for opioid use disorder delivered in primary care setting reduce opioid related death. These are the kind of studies that can be done under this. Another example is an offer of delayed antibiotics for respiratory infections is acceptable to patients and associated with little difference in symptom resolution. So these two one can do when we are trying to understand disease prevention, chronic care management, acute illnesses, and so forth. Then number two is understanding how to better organize healthcare to meet patient and population needs. What kind of study do we do under these types of PHC research? So here, some of the question is, does offering behavioral health and primary care in the same clinic increase depression treatment? That is number one. Number two, does a resulting increase in depression treatment reduce work absenteeism? So the big question there is, how do we better organize healthcare to meet our community or population needs? So these are some of the questions. So let's go to number three. One is translating science into primary care practice. The example is, can a primary care practice implement childhood obesity reduction? Does delivery of a basket of evidence-based treatments in primary care for older Americans reduce heart attacks? So this is under translating science into primary care. Now, we are under this, we know that we are going to do research. We will always take a look at the very concise and very precise Ellie's presentation, and we ask ourselves, what science evidence do we have? And how do we then use it to improve healthcare? So these are the major things. And of course, as we already mentioned earlier, the fourth aspect is evaluating innovations to provide the best healthcare to patients. So here, one could be looking at an interactive preventive health record developed in primary health care, increasing the uptake of recommended preventive services. So if we consider health record as a very important innovation, how can it then help us to increase uptake of recommended preventive care? That is, if you're looking at health record. Then a second point is, because under this number 4, we are interested in innovations. So what are the kind of innovation does or can AfroPHC come up with, because we are doing research together, and then after that, present that as a form of new thinking, new paradigm that we can use to help our community. So the second example here is a novel hospital discharge program developed in primary health care to reduce readmission. So that, of course, becomes very innovative. You know very well, when we are answering research grant calls, many times they will tell you what makes your grant application accepted is the novelty, and this is the innovation. Because when we say, in this case, preventive health record, helping an increase in recommended preventive measures or services, that would be a very nice thing. When the reviewers see that kind of innovation, it becomes then a very turning point for them to select your grant proposal as something that is worthy of funding. So innovation in primary healthcare is definitely a very key thing. So we need to get there. Then number 5, of course, is engaging patients, communities, and practices to improve health. The question here is, how do we engage communities? And what practices do improve health? So some of the question here, do community partnership improve adherence to evidence-based guidelines? Does patient engagement in weight loss plans affect health outcomes? So these are the questions. How do we work with the community? Because there is a very important aspect of a type of research, what we call community-based participatory research. Now, under this, we know very well that the community members, these are people who have not gone, they may have gone to school, but they have not, studied medicine. That is a good one. They may be in our African setting. In my community, there are some people who have not gone far. They have been to primary 1, primary 2, primary 3, and they dropped out of school. They know the local language. They also have indigenous knowledge system. But the thing is, we don't need to neglect the knowledge they have. We need to come together and co-create and generate knowledge together. So this is how we can engage communities, knowing that they also have some knowledge that we can work together with. And then from there, we generate or innovate and then come up with practices that promote good health for our community. So these some of the the kind of research that we could apply what Professor Ellis had given us and use some of these ideas to operate our AfroPHC research group. So having had that, then I'm asking us, what can we do? I am just throwing this to you guys. I am saying, look, we can bring about the best team of PHC professionals to join hands in researching and dissemination of evidence-based findings on PHC for global health. That is some of the things that we're going to start with. Of course, we are, as they say, charity starts at home. We will do it in our communities, and then we hope to also, go global. And then, of course, I look at development of capacity in the field of PHC so that institutions and human resources are enabled to perform the best tasks under PHC. So that is one of the things that I thought our team here could do. We need to build capacity. Professor Shabi will tell you that that is definitely what we are we are sitting here for. So that is some of the things that I feel we could do. Then, of course, we could also provide advisory roles to institutions and governments to support the development of appropriate policy guidelines for enhancement of PHC activities. So I see that that is equally very important. Then above all, we develop training programs for the promotion of PHC. So these are some of the, the roles that I feel we could do. Then, of course, the suggested ways forward then for us is that we need then to strengthen this team to engage in these activities that promote PHC through evidence-based research. That is what we know we are going to do. And then, of course, we need to seek more partnership with potential donors to support the activities of AfroPHC towards PHC promotion. I hope my dear brother, Dr. Besigye, is listening so that he leads us in that direction. And then, of course, we participate in joint research by members in a multi-country collaboration. I think that would be a very good thing to do. Then collect data for analysis that informs the activity of AfroPHC in ensuring that the health of people in the respective countries are taken care of. And then, of course, we established a framework or platform where information sharing can be done to support the activities of AfroPHC. We should also ensure that the mentoring program and training of young faculties should continue to ensure that we promote the goals of AfroPHC, as well as enhancing PHC visibility and activities. So I really appreciate you listening. I thought that is the kind of overview that I could share with you, and we could definitely sit down and brainstorm over that. I thank you very much for listening, and I hand the mic to thank you, Ephraim, and the rest of the members.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Dr. Constantine. We are grateful.
You're welcome.
For your presentation.
Thank you.
We now hand over to, we are still waiting for our third presenter, she will join soon. So we'll ask representative from Imperial College to share their research with AfroPHC on digital health. Okay, you see we have, there's a question. So Rebecca, you can go ahead to ask your question. Rebecca, you can unmute and speak. Rebecca, you can speak now. All right, you can also share your thoughts and guidance on Novice researches in the chat, or you can unmute and speak if you have any contribution to make or add.
It would really be good if our participants are able to. Everyone can unmute themselves. So if you click on it, you should be able to unmute yourself. And share your insights. Joan, you can unmute yourself, but let me help you. Go ahead, Joan, you can speak.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm Joan Keegan from Kenya. Thank you for that presentation. When I was listening to Dr. and I felt that most of the primary healthcare that we have in most African countries, when you have the challenges that we have, are issues that are due to the systems, which sometimes they touch the governments, from the higher, the national, the counties, where we have counties or the regional. I don't know, when we look at maybe a research area, will it affect issues of ethics, where we touch on areas that would bring some issues and friction when it comes to the national, maybe governments, or the regional or the local governments that we have? Because I've seen that the topics are really good, but most of the issues that we see that in the primary healthcare are sometimes affected by the systems that we have in place, like issues of commodities, procurement processes that delay and also affect the quality of care that we give in our primary health care. Over. Thank you.
I could say something there. I think, we have institutions like universities that, for instance, where I am, and many of us, we need to find our role, where we play our part as researchers. So when we know our role, there is one thing which is very important. And yeah, I remember, Kigen, you're from Kenya, as you said, right? I believe you're from Kenya. So I lived in Kisumu. I used to be in Kenya for some time. So what was very interesting when we do research is that we bring like the policymakers from Ministry of Health, and where possible, the key stakeholders, so that they are part of the research team. When they become part of the research team, it is very easy for them to see what is being done for themselves. And then at that point, that is when they go discussing issues to do with policy, they can then already be part of the evidence. They are part of the evidence. That means they see the evidence come from the research as it is. So it becomes much easier then for them to really appreciate that, this kind of research that is being done or being undertaken provide the best evidence for them to use in designing policies that improve healthcare. So that is my take on that, Joan. Thank you very much. I see the hands of El Hadi, Niskin. Thank you. Can you attend to El Hadi?
Hadi, you can mute and speak. You can unmute and speak. Hadi, can you hear me now? You are muted, Hadi.
Are they unable to unmute? Can you send him a message or something? He seems to be having.
Okay.
There.
Yeah.
Okay. 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 Thank you very much. for this very important and very promotive platforms. And through these platforms, we can address many challenges facing Africa researchers or scientists addressing PHCC, and we can reach our voice for the policy makers at the same times. I think this is a good opportunity for all of us to share our knowledge, to our experience with our young colleagues. I have some comment. One, these platforms is very, I think it will be very promotive, and later on we can think to promote it for the academic institutes with giving all certificate holding trainings addressing the PHCC problems and so with. And the second one is to build networks, active networks, like with WHO, African Unions, and World Bank, WONCA, and so and so. And because many of the research, many of our activities need fund and need to be financially support, and also need to be addressed.
Hi, everyone. Sorry.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Hello, please, will you allow me?
Hello, Abimbola. Abimbola, can you mute yourself? Rebecca, you can mute and talk now.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, I just wanted to thank Dr. Constantine for that elaborate background and overview about PHC. One of the issues which interested me more is that in order to have research or somebody to conduct research, you need an environment, conducive and enabling environment. I feel that is very important. But what I've noted is that seasoned researchers are not willing to bring that type of environment to novice, to those who are just coming up. So as a result, those who are just starting up with their research are not comfortable because they are not welcome. It's like, because you are not there, so you cannot be part of us. So how can you help us? And secondly, is it possible that Dr. Constantine share the slides which he just had now? Thank you.
Hello, please allow me.
Hello, Paul. Can you unmute? Paul, do you want to say something?
This is B2. Can I say something, please?
Yeah, you can go ahead. B2.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And this is very interesting where we can share experience we have. And the very important point for both presenters, we learned a lot and we saw a lot of things. Maybe on the first presenter, what I'd like to capitalize is we need to give focus on concept maturation, because most of the researchers' problem is concept maturation. When they understand the concept properly, they can mature through time and they can develop conceptual framework. We are talking about introductory part. That is a very important point. On the second presenter, very important point was tied, like how to reach hard to reach area as a critical problem. That's a very important point. Knowledge skill gap is very important point. And what has to be given attention still is about the indigenous knowledge. We are overlooking the knowledge our community has. That has to be get attention. And finally, what mentioned about the capacity building through training is very important, because knowledge update is very important. And the relation between academicians and the service area providers is very important, because academicians, there is the knowledge skill gap in terms of academicians. There's also the problem from the service providers in terms of theory. If you work together, if you are together, we can be a better, knowledgeable, and skillful people, and also we can give proper community service to the community. And this is what I have, and thank you very much. This is excellent work, and we can proceed together. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any other contributions? I think we can now hand over to a representative from Imperial College to share their thoughts on the digital health research collaboration with AfroPHC. So if there's a representative here, they can go ahead. Whilst waiting for our third presenter. Hello, Prof. Is there a representative from Imperial College London?
Excuse me, Ephraim. Do we have the next presenter so that we
She's
move
not
to
around. She will join at 1:30 GMT.
because if you have to follow time, then we are left with about 40 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, she'll be in 9 minutes. She will join.
So with your permission, If we could maybe address Rebecca's question about supporting novice researchers, I suppose that is what the next speaker is actually going to talk about, forming a network. But so my question to Rebecca is, what is your need? You know, there's various expertise amongst all of the people on the call. So what would be the need of a novice, which could be a novice, the word novice could mean different things for different people. So if Rebecca could maybe elaborate on what she needs as support.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. What I meant by novice is that somebody who is new in the field of doing a research. You know, people could have gone through school, they did maybe their dissertation at BS level, even at master's level, but that doesn't make them to be like now experts, they can do everything. So normally, once you have done maybe your first, second research, you're not comfortable. You need some mentors. And then you find that there are people either within the institution or somewhere else whom you feel they can mentor you, they can assist you, either by taking you on board when they're doing their research from proposal, grant writing, and the like. But when you join, when you are there, you know, you get that type of, I don't know whether an attitude or something like that, that they don't want you to be part of them. It's like those who are seasoned researchers, they want to be among themselves, but not taking these who are upcoming researchers to be part of the team. I think that is what I'm seeing a lot in Africa, and especially among nurses and midwives. Even I've seen some doctors doing the same, but it's very common among midwives and nurses, which I feel there's no way one can continue and become an expert if somebody cannot take you on board and assist you to reach where you want to go. Thank you.
Yeah. So my response to that is, even among seasoned researchers, there is a need to discuss research. That is not just applicable to novices. And I do get what you're saying about nurses, given that my background is also nursing. I would say that each research project needs a discussion, and that's why there's a team. You know, one of the things of research, it's not just a one-man show. It's actually a multidisciplinary, and I'm not just talking about health professionals. It's also the data capturers, the bioinformaticists, the statistician, everyone. And I think as nurses, we are not used to this kind of rigor and collaboration between professions. And yes, the other thing I want to say is I do think that as researchers, the more you're involved with research, the more you forget about where you're coming from. And what it took to actually become, you know, with each research project, you learn a lot and you learn more. So it might not be that they do not want you to be part of them. It's just people forget what it was like. It's like nursing, you know. We always say in nursing, the matron should come and nurse next to the bed so that she can remember what it was like to be a nurse. So, yeah, just consider it might not because they don't want you there, but it's that they expect you to be on these, be as proficient and as skilled as they are. Just two thoughts. And the last thought, if I may, is there is a community of people in this, in the AfroPHC. I would invite you to consider to start a community of practice with this. And I do know the next speaker is going to talk about practice-based research. But if there's a specific need for nurses to have a platform or a structure to talk about research, start that conversation.
Perhaps I could add a comment, and I do apologize.
Thank you very much.
Anna?
Very helpful.
Yeah, perhaps I can, just.
Please pardon.
Biftu, sorry, you want to respond? Sorry, I just want to add a comment to what.
Maybe, sorry, Professor. I wanted to hear again what Dr. Eliza said at the end about nursing.
Perhaps you can repeat that, Elise.
The last thing I said is that given that AfroPHC has got a community, there are many members, and there are members that are in different professions. If there's a need for nurses to form a community of practice with regards to research, my invitation to Rebecca is start such a community.
If I may just add to that, perhaps as a preface to Anna. Anna hasn't spoken yet, I understand, Elise.
No, she hasn't.
So Anna can go next. I think just to add to this, essentially, this platform is a place for us to bring together the entire primary healthcare team members, those interested in research, and to create this community of practice. I think I can understand the need for different disciplines to develop it and have a sensitivity to their own issues, but don't underestimate the value of transdisciplinary type of research, which can be much more useful for you to think out of the box. So this kind of space where there are not necessarily only nurses or doctors, etc., can make you think much more differently. There are also differences in the way in which we apply research, in the way we think about research, etc., even between the disciplines that can be much more enriching. I think that even the statement about practice-based research, the network, I think the global connotation is that that is all about GPs and doctors collect data, but that is not true. In fact, it is any practice. So whether it is a nurse, a nutritionist, anyone that is collecting, that is practicing in a space, they can potentially bring people like that into a network and then collect data relevant. So I think that in the African setting, this is true and can be collected. The data that we want to try and encourage as a research network goes can be both to do collaborative research support like we're doing now, or to even be part of a network where we collect data. And that might be, as most of us in the primary healthcare setting are, seeing patients. You might be a nurse that is actually only doing midwifery midwifery practice. And in fact, we may find that there are many different people coming together and around a project where you are the primary caregiver, and it may be other settings where the doctor is the primary caregiver, or a clinical associate could be, or a clinical officer. So I think in the African setting, we have a much more wider bunch of people, but the ideas remain the same. How do we think through primary health care and the questions that we need to ask to be able to improve the way in which care is given? And I think the speakers before have talked about all those possibilities. And I think we must be very careful of only thinking about biomedical type of questions. In fact, our problems tend to be much more broader. And I think Elise and Constantine have pointed out that we have to think, in fact, our primary problems should be around the systems issues, because many of us have spoken about that, that in fact, the system doesn't support us. I must apologize. I was sitting trying to manage another meeting where I was a panel speaker in a Lancet commission launch around financing for primary health care. And they wanted to hear, and I couldn't get on for all my trying to manage both these meetings, to be able to respond, because they had many questions to say, how do providers respond to the question of financing? They want to hear how we think and what we think are the ways in which things can be done differently. And the people I was speaking to were all finance economists and departments of finance across the world. So I think that there is a strong, and I was invited specifically to speak on that panel as speaking as the executive coordinator of AfroPHC. And a lot of the time when I was trying to speak to them, the issues I would raise are actually, how do we actually think through these system issues where we think we ought to be in a different setting. For example, if we were given funds, how do we spend it? If we were to organize ourselves in human resource, how do we do it? What are the critical issues for us to do the best we can? And I think as providers, we need to come up with that position. We're coming up with a policy paper. And I think that policy paper framework is there to try and build that out, to build a consensus around the team. And I think that we are going to land up in that having questions, and these could be very much the questions we need to be asking as a research group. So let me stop there. I think I want to let Anna Dania speak, because she's going to speak to a very important topic, as how do we conceive of the practice-based research? Not all of us are going to land up saying we want to actually put a research project together and we will, want supervision, etc. What some of us may want to do is saying, listen, I like research, but I don't mind collecting some data. And maybe if I get interested, I could do one project myself, or I could be part of the process in some way. And I think that's why we said, let's get Anna to talk to us more about it. So I hope if we can give her that chance and then come back to questions after she's finished. Sorry, St. Chira, I had to step in there just to help us move along and just to say something at least on that score. Thanks, St. Chira. Over to you, Anna.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for the invitation to participate in this series of educational support to AfroPHC. I would like to introduce myself and say that I'm a PhD researcher at Maastricht University in the Faculty of Family Medicine and Capri Institute, and I have been conducting research on practice-based research networks, establishment and sustainability globally. This is a unique research that has never happened before. And in our team, we have Dutch, Finnish, and American and British contributors. And as you will see, we have observed about 115 PBRNs from various countries, and we have ended up in some conclusions. But because I want to connect the previous talks by Sabir when I joined in, I would like to say that the key of everything is building relationships. I think that if you want to do something, either communities of practice that I really appreciate, and it is one of the targets for the practice-based research networks, or even one of the major let's say, functions is the community of practice. But you cannot proceed anything unless you establish relationships. In relationships, multidisciplinary relationships, which are reciprocal, relationships of trust, as you will see below, relationships with openness. Let me join this, start presenting, but I would appreciate if you send messages to chat and we start discussing also on my presentation. I mean, I can make it shorter or I can make it longer depending how much you would like to discuss on that, because I would find more beneficial that you understand 5 slides instead of presenting the total slides and you don't understand. So I will ask your contributions in a while.
And Anna,
so I will
sorry,
present.
if I may just mention, I think we can always take it to the next meeting. I don't want you to do injustice to the slides. So I think that's great. Do as best as you can. We try to finish by 4 o'clock, and then we can make a judgment and we can carry on to the next meeting.
Okay. So what I'm going to present today is just an introduction to practice-based research networks. And first of all, what is a practice-based research network? The practice-based research networks is collaborations of researchers and primary care practitioners, not only family physicians, who are engaged in conducting healthcare research, addressing questions. Here I say that probably emerge from the daily practice, but they may be also research questions which come from the healthcare context or healthcare stakeholders as well. And they are aiming also to translate the research findings into evidence-based practice to improve the healthcare quality and patient care. The practice-based research networks have been called as the laboratories of the primary care. And indeed they are, but they have a particularity. They take place in the primary care settings. Instead, in contrast to let's say, academic, well-known laboratories which take place in academic institutes and other entities. And they are a cost-effective way to conduct research in the primary care settings. And that's why, for example, the UK applies this global model of healthcare research delivery. And they make the research coming out of the ivory tower of academia into community and make research more community focused and more relevant to primary care, because the research questions are more connected to what is happening in the daily practice of primary care. I would like to say that the PBRN started, the seminal ideas of PBRNs have their roots in late 80s in the UK by James Mackenzie, who first studied alone the cardiac arrhythmia, and he became the pioneer of, let's say, family physician research. And then by Will Pickles, who was the leading epidemiologist from the UK. And then John Fry, who was a practitioner, a leading reformer of general practice, who was an evidence-based practitioner before the evidence-based practice was invented. On the other hand, and on the other side of the channel, in the Netherlands, from 1945, Higgin started a research activity in his practice, studying the morbidity pattern in the families of his practice. I would say that these were the first steps where we had family medicine research. We have to say here that all the things in primary care started from family medicine, and the family medicine has been the spearhead of primary care research. In 1967, in UK and the Netherlands, we had some developments, and we had the weekly return service in Birmingham and the continuous morbidity registration establishment in Nijmegen. In the UK, in Birmingham, a group of general practitioners under the Royal College of General Practice Research Unit in Birmingham started collecting morbidity data systematically to inform the disease to inform the disease occurrence and to monitor the infectious time diseases, to inform the public health authorities and the policymakers. On the other side, the continuous morbidity registration started again by Dr. Higgins, who in '67 he became the first professor of family medicine in the Netherlands, and he identified an entire lack of empirical information from the family medicine settings, because all the knowledge and research was conducted in specialized care. So he supported the development, the extension after his practice to a second practice and then to two more practices. So we had finally 4 family practices in the Nijmegen area to collect morbidity data deriving from the day-to-day experience of GPs systematically, and to develop the first collaboration in the Netherlands. Besides, in America, in 1961, we had Kerr White, who had identified that there is a desire to build evidence-based for family medicine, because the family medicine and the primary care is where all the patients end up before they go somewhere else. They are the big, let's say, the biggest, the broader spectrum where they meet the professionals meet the patients, and there was a need to build evidence for family medicine and the basis of this evidence. Now you will ask me why we look so much so far in the past. And I think that is very clever question if you do so. And I will tell you why. As I said before, we studied about 115 PBRNs using 260 sources and 56 interviews. And here is the geographical distribution of PBRNs. Some PBRNs were binational and some multinational, not many. And then we had national or regional PBRNs, or even in smaller localities. What we identified from our research is that the PBRNs share many similar characteristics, facilitators, and barriers independently from the countries and the context they have developed, and independently from their trajectory of development, maturity, sustainability, and operational focus. And moreover, we have found that the PBRNs evolved, they were creating in an environment which might be evolved as a total environment of PBRNs globally, but they still undergo their own stages of development, which are similar to the state of development of previous PBRNs that happened in a different time scale. That means that if you plan to establish a PBRN today, you will have to go through some processes that happened also to PBRNs that started in 1980s. So that is very important to hear how the things are happening. Talking about PBRNs, I thought that it would be very important. Hello? Is anybody who wants to ask something?
No, don't worry about it. Carry on.
Okay.
I think it was just somebody unmuted themselves.
Okay. So I would like to say that I found that it would be very beneficial for you as an introduction to get acquainted to the missions that we met in the bibliography. Here is just some identical examples of missions to give you the idea that a PBRN doesn't mean that it should have a similar mission as a previous one. But we have also to think that PBRNs may modify their missions throughout their trajectories. The missions met in bibliography refer to monitor health problems and morbidity in general practice, provide optimal health, developing partnerships between academic researchers and community practitioner teams, and provide the best clinical outcomes for primary care, translating research into practice, provide and influence the decisions to patients and policymakers and the practices, improve the quality and safety of healthcare, support the primary care research and education, and connect the primary care research and education. The purposes met in bibliography were referring to study problems as they are presented in the primary care settings, facilitating research on chronic disease, provide a forum for communication and collaboration, and support the growth of professionals. And I would say that this is one of the targets we are here today. Manage an approach of hosting high quality research. That's the model from the UK. Improve the health and healthcare for underserved, low income, and various underserved populations. Participate in clinical research for the benefit of patients, and enhance the discipline of general practice through research training and research activity. So as you see, the variety of missions and purposes means that depending the timing and depending the needs that are identified in specific community and specific settings, the purposes and missions of a PBRN may vary. I would like to show you here a figure that comes from a VONCA presentation last year, where you can see a schematic representation of how the PBRNs are established in the whole healthcare context. As you see, here is the core of academics and and practitioners that develop the PBRN, who are interacting, and then all the patients and community stakeholders and the other healthcare stakeholders who are more and more involved in the governance of PBRNs over the years, are entering the core of PBRNs. And then we see the professional organizations who have been contributing to the development of PBRNs. We see the impact of other PBRNs and the cumulative experience from the PBRN activity, which I mentioned before. And all these are sitting on the national healthcare system and context. And then we have the external funders who provide the funding and affect sometimes the agendas of PBRNs. It is something that we can discuss in future. Is various governmental support, national and policy regulatory environment, and institutions and policymakers. And then here is the health information technology advancements and vendors who have been in some cases supporting the PBRN's development, and sometimes they hinder the PBRN developments. I would say that today I can say a few things about the core and what happens in the core of PBRN and the interactions in the core. That means I would think that it is very important to think about the academics and practitioners in the field, because those are the key actors to develop a PBRN. And To make it more clear, when I'm talking about academics, I'm talking about various levels, professorships and researchers and academic institutes. And when I'm talking about practitioners in the field, I mean family physicians, nurses, other primary healthcare specialists, pharmacists, chiropractors, podiatrists, nutritionists, and so forth. That means that the PBRN can be developed either from a single discipline, let's say, as I heard when I was entering this forum, it can be developed only among nurses, and then you may have academic nurses and practitioners nurses, or you can have a PBRN that engages all the primary care spectrum. That means that we will have practices instead of practitioners here, but practices which are including all the practitioners together with the directors, together with the non-clinical staff who want to conduct research. And there we can have all the disciplines together collaborating for research. I hope that is clear. The drivers of the key actors are varying, and this is one step that is very important when thinking to develop a BBRN. The academics, usually they want to have a scholarly output for their discipline because they look for the recognition of the family medicine and the primary care disciplines, and everybody knows that the primary care disciplines are undervalued still, and the academicians are the most prone to conduct research to improve and raise the value and the profiles of the professionals. So they are seeking for recognition, they are seeking for professional growth, they are seeking for outcomes that can help to improve the education, to improve the careers and so forth. And also they like to have development of academic centers of excellence for research and to provide training there and so forth. But for the practitioners, the motivation is different. The practitioner is motivated when he's looking for patient care excellence, is the strongest motivation. And then the interest of practitioner is revolving around research topics that are closely related to their daily work. And they want to have research which is relevant and applicable in the primary care settings. And they desire to support research to generate new knowledge that can improve their practice. They can improve the patient care, and they want to influence healthcare policy and advocacy. And they are very interested also in advocacy of their patients. Furthermore, the professionals are very interested to increase job satisfaction, because in many countries we have found that the family physicians and the primary care practitioners experience a kind of isolation and a kind of burnout that can be comforted with the participation in research. And the collegiality and networking is another key that motivates practitioners to engage in research. And the peer learning. The peer learning is what you talked before in the form of communities of practice. The contributions of the key actors are varying too. The academic contribution is about mentoring, training, providing fellowships from the academia, intellectual support, hosting and supporting financially the practice-based research networks, either with money or with finance, research funding, or in-kind support, for example, providing salaries and staff. They provide, the academics have been most commonly leaders of networks. They have been sustaining networks, research agendas with their expertise, quality of knowledge and reputation that secures fundraising. The academia provided institutional review boards, and they provided also support for quality assurance. As example, when we are gathering data, they supported research for quality improvement audits, and they supported also practices to have benchmarking and to get credits, for example, for professional credits and so forth. The practitioner contributions are more about research questions. Is something that you are asked to form also from now on. Data recording and electronic health record, also extraction and permissions and data use. Participation in research activities, either as contributors or co-investigators or principal investigators if they get the appropriate training. Then the knowledge translation into research implementation in practice, support to guideline development and implementation, and advocacy for populations. That last is very important, I think, for Africa. As I said before, when I started, the importance of relationship building is fundamental. I think that you cannot talk about any collaboration in research if you don't develop relationships which are open and constructive. I have put red light here because I think that you must, I would suggest that if you want to establish PBRNs, I would recommend that you take that slide and put it in your office. I would say that all about research, not only about PBRNs, but all about research in primary care settings when we are talking about multidisciplinary research. And so it's referred about producing ties and properties. The ties is the development of relationships that are characterized by respect, reciprocity, synergy, and trust. I could add other words also like openness and and I would say that without developing relationships, you can have nothing. You can develop properties like new knowledge, organizational infrastructure, research data, databases, learning environment through multidirectional communication, but only if you develop relationships of trust, respect, reciprocity, and synergy. The solid foundation for a PBRN, further than what I said about the relationship, is that it is needed to develop a shared vision between practitioners in the field and academics, to establish a learning community function. A learning community function means the same like communities of practice. And it includes the dissemination of the value-added resources that are produced by research and the knowledge diffusion. It includes the solid foundation of PBRNs, includes the reciprocal benefits for practices. And these kind of benefits are either some remunerations for the time spent to research, data quality audits when people are gathering data, for example, recording data from electronic health records, professional credits for participation, Practice facilitators and practice liaisons who visit and maintain the relationships with the practice, facilitate the research, and provide the research assistance in the practices, and an ongoing mentorship and practitioner empowerment. I would say that the last maybe is, together with the first, the milestones of establishment. I think that what is happening now here, that mentorship pattern and the practitioner empowerment is exactly the first step to develop a PBRN if one wants to go ahead with that. Last thing that I would like to underline, but it was already said by, as I said, by Kerr White in 1961, when he identified the need to build evidence-based for family practice. The PBRNs go hand in hand with the family medicine development, and it is natural because they are the laboratories of the family practice and primary care. So in countries where the discipline of family medicine has been strongly developed, we have been seeing that like in the UK and the Netherlands, the PBRNs developed exactly when the academic discipline established. And as I said before, Dr. Higgins became professor in 1967, and this period coincides with the startup of PBRNs in the Netherlands. And the weekly returns of Birmingham were established when the first research unit was established by the Royal College of General Practitioners in the UK. In contrast, in countries where the discipline was not well supported, the development of PBRNs has been lagged significantly. And this is because, as I said, it's not because the family physicians are the most important than the others, but it is because they have been the gatekeepers of primary care, of the whole healthcare system. And they have been also practically, this is the truth, the spearheads of the primary care research. But we have a lot of developments of PBRNs, as I said before, by other disciplines, which are specialized on the topics of their disciplines and their specialties. And we have the development that the PBRNs globally now are a topic of primary care and not family medicine anymore, although they have been very much connected with the development of family medicine. Thank you very much. I would like to hear questions.
Thank you. Perhaps before Sinchiri closes, I just want to say thank you. I think just to emphasize, I don't see any questions. If you have questions, please pick up your hand, and then we can unmute you. I've just maybe you can unmute yourself now. But please pick up your hand. I think that, like you said, it is really about primary care, and primary health care has the opportunity through practice-based research, in fact, just generally strengthen research to enhance the prestige of primary health care. It's part of the development of the discipline that we do improve our research capacity. So if primary health care has to be taken seriously by the disciplines, all the disciplines that are involved in primary health care need to be active in research in primary health care to be able to get respect for what you do in primary health care. And it is not, often the other physios in the hospital think, primary health care is just simple work. And if you're a physiotherapist in primary health care, that is not easy work. And it's a very complex situation. You're not just dealing with biomedical challenges. So like that, for all of our disciplines, primary health care needs to be more research so that we can do that. And I think this is a meeting, where we are bringing academics, people who are interested in, and practitioners, we are interested in research. And also we are the primary goal of the forum Sorry, there was someone who was want to speak. If you can just pick up your hand again. If you look at it, we have as this group, as AfroPHC, the need to be able to communicate with each other and build trust as a primary healthcare team. And in the research space, I think that's really there. We ask ourselves, how do we build our vision in terms of doing research? So one of them is to do practice-based research, where we don't all have to be researchers doing the full thing, but we're willing to be part of that space, even collecting data on behalf of some of the researchers who might be doing it. So I think this is a really useful thing for those of you who are doing planning research and want to be mentored. You have people around the table here who might in fact be able to collect some of that data on a multinational basis, but you need to think carefully about that. And I think that's the path going forward. So perhaps we can get Onalena and Rebecca. You could unmute yourself,
yes,
Rebecca.
Something. I have a message from Vonga from that meeting of 21st of March.
Yes.
I didn't explain to the audience that I'm developing an initiative with Vonga to develop a shared resource for PBRNs, let's say, for the promotion of PBRNs around the globe. And that brings us together here. And I would like to say that one of the efforts we are going to undertake is to support countries who have not developed PBRNs and they have not well-developed primary care and family medicine to promote research in their settings and find ways to establish PBRNs in countries like in Africa. So there is another, let's say, field that we can discuss from this forum. And I'm open for discussions, and I know that there is mentors who are open to contribute. And I can say it already from today.
Wonderful. We will certainly be taking that seriously. I know that the EGPRN, which is the network in the Europe, has been willing to share their resources, and we'd love to pick up on that conversation. I think Onalena and Rebecca, baby Rebecca. So thanks very much. I think we really can take that up, and thank you for being willing to be part of this monthly journey with us to explore how we can actually build this slowly. Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Good.
Thank you
Onalena,
very much.
go ahead. Perhaps Onalena and then
Thank you so much
Rebecca.
for the opportunity. My name is Onalena Mokena. I'm a policymaker and a health economist for the Ministry of Health, Botswana.
Wonderful.
I am feeling very happy to actually be hearing this coming from Africa, because personally, as a policymaker, I think it's been a concern to the fact that you find that we are developing a lot of policies, but we are not evaluating it. And I feel that this is an opportunity to actually evaluate all these policies, their relevance, whether they're still relevant, or why are they not utilized if they're not utilized. So, and even the effectiveness and the efficiency in the health system at large. You will find that a lot of problems that we're actually having in the health system, in health, is issues relating to health system. And I feel I'm very happy that maybe we'll have this opportunity to meet, maybe as policymakers and health economists, to have a platform within the same platform that we can actually discuss issues of health system strengthening, so that because I believe if we can do evaluation research, we are going to improve our health system. We are going to ensure that there is data collection. I believe that data is the one that is going to inform us on our researches. So when we say evidence-based research, I believe that that research will be coming from the data that we collect daily within our facilities, and within the different clinical protocols that we actually applying in our different settings or different professions. So I'm very proud of this.
Wonderful.
And personally myself, I thought I can be an evaluator, but I can be a reviewer. I feel like I want to participate to be a researcher myself, because I feel like most of the time disadvantage, because you find that as a country, as Botswana, you find that they don't prioritize research over other health services. So this will give me an opportunity to actually look at certain areas that I can work on in terms of research and health system strengthening at large. Thank you.
Wonderful, Anna. You've raised some important points. One, you have research questions, and I think you can look at researching it yourself. But as a practitioner, you are thinking of questions, and that's really important. In terms of the network, I mean, the kind of research questions and the being a researcher, you can think of using this network in many different ways. I mean, we've taken, for example, a workshop that we planned and around digital health, and we recorded and agreed to the focus group discussions becoming a paper study. And we've actually translated the paper that's soon to be published. So like that, the members of this forum, even the meetings, can land up being research. Of course, we are looking at all sorts of different research, amongst this network in different ways, including us collecting data on the ground amongst patients. And this is practice-based, but we are going to be sharing the idea that we are bringing forward. We are part of a partnership that's been successful, welcome funding. It doesn't offer a lot of money, but it is about even taking it one step further of trying to support this network in looking at population-based research. So in other words, to find links, etc., and help the unpacking of primary health care, even taking populations into account. So I think there's an exciting space here, and we need both practitioners like you and researchers like you. So thank you, Annalena, and please keep in touch and be part of that network. Thank you. Rebecca, go ahead.
Thank you very much. First, I would like to thank Anna for such an eye-opening. We have heard about this CPBRN, but today, at least it's like, wow, this is what it is. And, taking the history, where it's coming from and where it's going, I'm sure it's going to teach some of us a lot. So as you have already said, looking forward, at the moment, I'm from Malawi, but I'm working in Uganda on capacity building at University of Leader. And there's very little research which is happening at that institution. And most of them, they do it's just quantitative. Everything is quantitative. And yet you look at some of the topics, you find this cannot be quantitative. It has to be qualitative, because you are trying to find information about. And then one thing which I observed or noted was that they are not clear, and they are not it's like they need a lot of mentoring in qualitative type of studies. So I'm sure this is a very good forum for faculty members and even students. And I'm sure I will encourage them to join, because they can learn a lot from this. Looking forward, to learning more about this PBRN. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. And please keep spreading the word, get people to join AfroPHC, and they can join and get into this whole circuit. Whether it's practitioners or academics, just spread the word and get as many as possible into this. Before I know you speak, I just want to ask you whether we could share, you could tell us whether you could share some useful studies regularly, which we could make part of a group discussion, because in our meetings, I think we want to look at perhaps more engagement in our process, where we can get people to discuss projects amongst themselves, because a lot of what you've talked about is to get to know each other and to build trust. And if we can look at that, perhaps even now, looking at previous studies done in other spaces, other parts of the world, and realize, hey, hang on, that was a nice study. And in fact, we could do it, and we could unpack it and see how can we potentially do a study like this in our setting. Perhaps you could share with us some of those studies that you've come across, and anyone could do that. But before you go on, I know you're next, and I know we're pushing our time a little bit, but I think Anna and there's a lot of other people who want to speak, and I just need to make a few quick announcements before Kitty closes. Go ahead, Anna.
Yes, I wanted to say that one of the two proposed papers to read includes some startup studies where you could look at is the paper of 2012.
Please share it with me later. Don't worry about mentioning it now. Just share it
in the materials.
Right,
and actually, I was thinking that it would be very interesting if you want, in the next session, we could go through these documents and mark some important points for the development of PBRNs. Both documents are coming from the USA, but as I said, the PBRNs have very many similarities around the globe. And in this context, we are talking right now, we are not involving the healthcare systems at all. So I would say that it is very useful even to read together these documents and mark on these documents which is important to see. And then you can go there and see some studies they have conducted in early period, medium period, and advanced period. And you can recognize what is important. But I was thinking also that it would be very important for developing ties in this very big group to gather data and study the quality of data, because as I said, one of the most important things in order to conduct research is to gather data and improve the quality of data before making research. Just to give you an idea, when
testing out
the Inteco network, yes, when they started the Inteco, not even testing, just ensuring the quality of recording. Because when we want to conduct research and the research should be reliable, we have to have accurate data, good quality data. Because if we conduct the research without quality data, it is useless. Nobody, I mean, we will be mistaken. So I would say that one important thing would be to study the quality of data here together, and to have maybe some other mentors who have been working with data recording and data gathering and quality data. This would be something that would bring the people together.
Wonderful.
Learning
Wonderful.
how
Certainly
to,
a project.
Yes, that is a real
next.
project. And I want to give two answers. One easy to who was from Malawi. I love people from Malawi. Qualitative, yes, I have been studying with persons from Malawi, and we were very good friends. So the qualitative studies are very demanding in comparison to quantitative. I mean, I have studied all the research methods for quantitative studies, and then I conducted only qualitative studies. And I can tell you that the qualitative studies is a sea where you have to swim. But the quantitative studies, if you find the right method and if you take out the confounders, you are very okay. So you must decide where you want to swim, and then to decide how you will proceed with research. In answering to Anna-Lena, I would like to say that the topic she approached about the effectiveness and efficacy of the healthcare, let's say, policy is one of the hottest that happens all around the world. And if you want to, because we are living in Finland, I am living in Finland, and in Finland we have a healthcare reform at the moment. And there has been discussion how we will evaluate the healthcare reform and the new implementations. I would say that one could look at three basic, let's say, actions, or the cost effectiveness, the access and equity of care, and patient-centeredness. And each one of them should be measured on different ways. And then you can have the outcomes of what is the effectiveness of care. Only cost-effectiveness evaluations are not, let's say, sufficient.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that, Anna. Useful. Precious, do you want to unmute yourself? Let me just allow you. I think you are able to unmute yourself. Let me just do that. Yep, there you go. Go ahead, Precious.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Great.
I'm a student nurse here in Nigeria, and I'm currently undergoing a research. And I'm kind of very delighted that I had the opportunity to be in this, get information. I'm actually carrying out a descriptive research on prevalence of congestive cardiac failure in adults. So this program, this short time with you people have really kind of opened my eyes to really look deeply for more information, for data, in order to carry out a very good research. Because over here as students, I would say the challenges we do get most times is that most times we have this mentality of just do the research just for, let's say, just so that you can pass and graduate. But with this learning today, like with everything you said here, I'm kind of gotten a broader horizon. Like I've really learned a lot, and I really, really appreciate. And I really wish that there can be a way this can be advertised more, because I think a lot of persons don't really know that this exists. And if lots of students like myself, I believe, have like engaged in this, I think that mentality will change in us. So I'm really, really grateful. I truly appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you, Precious. I can recognize what you're saying.
Is there any more contribution? I think there's no more contribution. So we thank all our presenters for today. And we are very grateful for your presentation. And we will now invite our Vice President for AfroPHC, Francois Imobufi, to give us the closing remarks.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for attending our first research committee that we are setting up, and we are very pleased with all the presenters and the quality of the presentation that went through today. Actually, it has really opened the eyes of many, and you see the kind of collaboration that is coming up, and we are glad that we're able to make the session today, and we want to plead with you to really help AfroPHC to grow in research. We want to recognize those that have really interested in coming in as researchers, as reviewers. And I would like to inform you that this has been possible because of Professor Shabi, that has really been a very strong backbone behind this. And we want to thank Senkire, who is leading this committee, and we plead with you people to register with the AfroPHC. We have lots and lots of activities going on in AfroPHC. And if you register, we're on the website, like the Senkire sent the site, you get to know more other things that we are doing in AfroPHC. And from this presentation today, we'll be able to learn that there is a book that talks about research in primary health care, and most of us are excited to go through that book to read it. So it was a very rich encounter with you all, and we pray that you join us in our next session, and let's together see how we improve primary health care research in Africa. Thank you all for attending. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Before you close, I just want to quickly mention something. It's just the question of the mentorship program. We will try and deal with that at the next meeting. You will be communicated, so please don't fret. We'll communicate with you, and also try to make sure that we get that off the ground, as well as the discussions we've had so far. So thank you very much. Thanks. Over to you, Sankira.
Thank you all. Our next meeting is on.
Thank you. Goodbye. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.